Welcome to the Confident Retirement Podcast. Is doing the most important things alone a good idea? How comfy are you with your choices when it comes to life's biggest decisions? What is real peace of mind with financial confidence, and how can you get it? Chris Fleming and Mark Peachy are the founders of LPF Advisors in Sarasota, Florida. On the show, they bring together the best and brightest minds to share with you how to have a more confident financial picture. They empower listeners with simple, common sense and financial wisdom. And now, here are your hosts from LPF Advisors.
Okay, hey, I want to welcome everyone to the Confident Retirement Podcast brought to you by LPF Advisors. I am your host here always, Chris Fleming. And today I have the honor of welcoming Maryam Golbarg to the show. She is a tax resolutions attorney able to represent clients in all 50 states. Maryam uses her extensive expertise to provide practical and expedient solutions with unwavering loyalty to her clients. Maryam, thanks for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun. So I'm sure you have kind of interesting backstory. You certainly do, that it would be different maybe from someone who was born in the U.S. So maybe take us through that and how you got to where you are today.
Okay. First of all, I really appreciate you having me here. I actually want to start from where I came from. I was born actually in Iran, and I studied law back home, and I actually had the honor to practice for only a few months because of the corrupt judicial system. I really prefer not to. So mostly actually when I was in law school, I was working as an editor-in-chief in the biggest law publication company in Iran, but I really didn't practice much. After graduation, actually after a few months, I left the country and I came here in 2001. And then after learning the language, because I really didn't know much, I actually studied in Notre for my LLM, Master in Human Rights and Civil Rights in Notre Dame Law School back in Indiana. After graduation in 2005, actually exactly 15 days after, I started working as a human rights practitioner in Connecticut for almost 3 years. And I was actually doing mostly research and public and documenting human rights abuses around the world and mainly in Iran. After that, actually, after I was completely burned out with the situation and with the family that I had, I didn't have any family member back, in 2008. I had to actually kind of stop working and join my husband because we were separating two different states. I was working in Connecticut and he was in Chicago. So it was a really great time. I came back to Chicago, joined my husband, and for a few years, actually, I just raised my daughter. And because I cannot do nothing, I was actually taking some management and accounting courses because I was always good with numbers, and I still love actually playing with numbers. Thinking actually instead of being an attorney, I can be a CPA. So I took all the requirements, but never sat for the CTA because I realized that instead of being a CPA, I can be an enroll agent. It actually was an easy way. And actually, I did all 3 exams in 17 days because it wasn't really something that I couldn't do. So after that, since 2013, I have been practicing and actually representing clients all over US with different actually companies and resolving IRS tax problem with them for them. In 2019, actually, after a few years postponing, actually not taking care of that, I sat for the bar exam in New York because that was, at least back then, the only state other than California that I could sit for the bar because I didn't get the JD here. I sat for the bar. I am actually licensed in New York and Texas because my office actually is in Texas right now.
Okay.
I still am an enroll agent and a tax attorney, working for at least almost 10 years, resolving IRS problem and other states actually issue for the clients.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. That's a brief and I guess world encompassing history there. Yeah. So I'm curious, if you could go back in time and maybe give the younger Maryam some advice, right?
Mhm.
Something that you know now that you wish you would have known back then, what do you think that would be?
Maybe actually starting practicing for myself a little, earlier than almost 2 or 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because, when I take a case, it doesn't matter where I'm working, I own the case. When I'm
Mm-hmm.
working with someone, I usually start work before the owner and leave the work after the owner. So I actually use a lot of my time for other people, advancing something that it wasn't really benefiting me or even client. I'm a human rights, practitioner kind of, still am. I would actually be able to help more because I could accept pro bono cases because a lot of places wouldn't accept that when I was working with them.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the two parts. Other than that, I would actually stay in the same practice. I love what I do.
Good. Yeah. Well, life's too short to do something that you don't love. That's for sure.
I love that.
So you touched on this a little bit. Maybe you could give me a description of your most typical client you work with. Is it a business? Are they individuals? Are they families? Is it spread out all over the place? What's a typical?
Actually, all over the place. But the people actually who are most in trouble actually are self-employed people. Individual self-employed people, or recently, incorporating business, very recent for 2 or 3 years max, and people who don't know exactly what to handle the tax part of their business. Usually they come, and when I tell them that you haven't made any estimated tax payment, they say, "What is that?"
Right.
And that is very surprising because when you are running a business, the tax is a very important part of the business. Yeah. And most of them actually come to see me without knowing or with a lot of inception. They really don't know what they are talking about. So mostly actually individual and business owner, a small business owner. I'm a solo practitioner with two help. So the bigger company and bigger individual actually don't really reach me. And if they do, I decline because I don't have a lot of resources to, manage let's say $10 million liability cases. I really prefer not to. But the other one, there are people actually I can help with way more efficient. And I would love to help them actually.
Okay. And you touched on this a little bit in something that you said. So is there a common or a big misconception that people have with either what you do or when they first start working with you?
Actually, when I tell people that I'm a tax attorney, a lot of things that they think that actually I do the tax preparation. That's part of the job. And I do sometimes, because I have other people to work, working with me. I am a solo practitioner, but I still working with other people actually, and I have resources. But they think actually I do the tax preparation, and a lot of them actually don't know even what the tax attorney does. Some of them actually think that I'm only on the property tax, attorney, that I am not anyway. And a lot of people, they don't know that they can actually have a representation before the IRS. So it's a little hard to explain to them. When they call me, actually, they know what they are looking for.
Right.
It means that they have done actually their research and they looked everywhere. And a lot of them actually review my very simple website because I try to explain stuff very simple for knowledge, for kind of educate people who don't know. If they knew, they didn't need to go to my website, right? So it's very simple. So usually when they call me, they usually know what they want.
Okay. Usually they're clueless. If they're in a tax liability situation, usually they're kind of clueless on how that process works, right? On what the steps that they have to go through. So maybe you can kind of walk us through that on a high level, on how you explain to them, here's what's going to happen, right, in this process.
So whoever actually calls my office with a liability or some kind of issue with the IRS, they have actually a notice that, for example, IRS is auditing them, or they come actually with a big notice that you owe this much of liability. Most of them, they know actually what the problem comes from, but not exactly how to resolve that. Unless they can actually really prove that they know what the problem is, I start with the investigation. So it's almost 99% of the time I tell them that although you are telling me that you received this notice, but I have to know exactly what years what kind of liability, if there is any lien, if there was any other issue that you are not telling me because you don't know or forget to tell me. So starting with the investigation, I usually actually file a tax authorization or a power of attorney, depends on the urgency of matter, and get all the information from IRS, usually calling IRS. There's a special line for the practitioner, so I'm not doing anything that jeopardizes their liability, so nothing happens after my call or actually checking their account. But after that, I will provide them with a report and explain to them what exactly their situation is and how we can resolve it based on the IRS guideline, based on their finances, based on their situation. And if they want to move forward, then we actually make a plan, because usually all the resolution, especially if we are going for the settlement or some kind of actually arrangement with the IRS, we need to do a little of tax planning. So I do actually pre-resolution planning. I'm not really doing the tax planning at that time. It's a pre-resolution tax planning. So we manage actually the finances, and if they qualify for any program, then actually I negotiate that program with the IRS.
Okay. That's really succinct. Now, I'm sure that during that whole process, while that's going on, Maryam, the clients can be very emotional or have some emotion tied to that. So how do you kind of help them deal with the emotional roller coaster of going through that?
After actually we discuss the matter, and if they would like to work with me, the first thing that I do, actually, I assure them that after working with me, they do not need to talk to IRS. I think that's the most effective way of actually calming down, because they are really scared of what happens. And I told them, while they are working with me, IRS, actually, I can manage IRS, and actually, they usually don't get lien. The lien actually is going to be, I'm sorry, they're not going to get levied or anything. And I will take care of their issue as long as they're working with me. Because one of the most difficult parts of my job is they think that when they hire me, when they actually return me, the whole problem goes away. It does not. It's actually starting the work. And actually, I will make sure that when we start the working, they know that if they don't provide the documentation to me, I cannot do anything, So they have to work with me. And I told them, sometimes I feel like I am an IRS agent chasing you guys to get the documentation, although it's not, it feels like that. But usually after we start working together, they're actually very, very calm, because they know that it's being taken care of by someone who knows what she's doing. Okay.
Well, and if they're giving you incomplete information, you're going to get an incomplete result, right?
Absolutely.
If you don't have all the info.
Happen. Yeah, it doesn't happen. I never actually let them go. So
right. Well, and now they've hired all the IRS agents, so I'm looking for when they're gonna come in any minute now. It's got a lot of people, 80,000. Although hopefully they put a lot of those people in the building where they answer the phones.
I really hope for that, but I hope that they train a lot of them, because just answering the phone doesn't resolve the problem.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
So hopefully they are going to be trained, and hopefully all of the, tax return and amended return are going to be processed, because a lot of my client actually, or at least prospective client, calling me regarding the tax return that hasn't been process. So hopefully if they do that, a lot of problem would be resolved, and hopefully we don't stay forever on hold. Doesn't have the knowledge.
Yeah, nothing's worse than being on hold for an hour and a half, and then the person can't help you that you end up talking to. That's just like a double poke in the back with a knife. Okay, so on the flip side of that, you've seen the good and the bad in terms of the way people operate their businesses. So what are maybe some simple things that, business owners can do to avoid being put in a situation where they are going to have a tax liability or, a problem from back taxes?
Okay. Not only in, business owner, whoever actually lives in US should actually be proactive. Unfortunately, people actually go to see, if they don't file their taxes themselves, they go see their tax preparer or their accountant once a year. Wrong. They should actually meet them, especially when they have a big event. Let's say they they start a business, they are getting divorced. They have a new member in the family. Someone, God forbid, dies. Any big event, actually, you have to talk to someone, or at least do the research by their own and find out what is going to be the tax implication. If everybody actually be proactive regarding their situation, we should actually have way less than problem that we have right now. I'm sure that one of the other things that actually is very important, I don't understand why people actually avoid that, is opening their letter. If they open that,
so they look at it, it's from the IRS, and they're like, oh,
they don't open it. They really don't open it. I have actually few clients sending me tons of, unopened letter.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't understand why not opening the letter doesn't resolve the issue. Another thing is not receiving the IRS letters doesn't resolve the issue. So if they move, they need to change their address. If they don't receive the letter, there is no, defense on that. You should update your IRS with the IRS, your address. If you don't do that, you don't have any defense. So opening the letter, first of all, receiving the letter, opening the letter, and be proactive about any changes in your situation. If you are self-employed, paying the estimated tax payment is very, very important. If they don't, of course, at the end of the year, especially if they have a good business, you usually can't pay the whole liability in once, and it's going to be a problem. And they are going to be, of course, having penalty and interest. Another thing is filing the tax return, even if you don't have the money.
Right.
At least you avoid late filing penalty, and you start the clock ticking, because IRS has only 10 years. If you don't file a return, there is no 10 years that, goes away. Yeah. So all of those little things actually help avoiding those tax problems.
Yeah. It's funny, people, if they think they can ignore it, it'll go away. I sometimes have conversations with clients and they're like, well, I was anxious to talk to you because I haven't been opening my statements. And, I heard the economy was bad. So I don't know what we're going to talk about today. Hopefully I'm still okay, which they are. Okay, so let's switch gears just a little bit. Just for the education of our audience, I'm hoping maybe you could just explain to us simply, what's a tax lien? Okay. And what assets or things can actually be liened upon, or, can a lien be put on?
The lien actually is a legal claim against your property. Okay. So whenever you have a liability with IRS, you automatically, by statute, actually have a lien. But until IRS actually file a notice of tax lien, no other creditors knows about the lien. That's why they file a tax lien in a county that there is a property located, right? So unless IRS actually file that notice of federal tax lien, there is no real claim against the properties, and they can actually lose against other creditors. That's why actually they file the lien. The lien actually can be against all the property that you have. Okay. So it is actually really against your Social Security. But the good news is they are not, although they are public, the credit agencies actually don't report that, and they don't, you really can't see it on the record anymore. But when you are trying to get a loan or they actually go deeper, they can actually find a lien.
So you're saying it's against property, which is like real estate, physical property, or it could also be against assets as well, or
the property, the asset consider the property, right? Against all of the asset that you have. And as I mentioned, even without the filing a notice of tax lien, IRS has by a statute against all of your property and asset. They have the lien, they have a claim. It means that until you satisfy the liability with the IRS through either program or paying the IRS, they can actually take the asset from you, but they don't. They have to issue the levy and go through the process of seizure and, all of those stuff, all of the notices and everything. So they usually don't do anything with the lien unless you try to sell the property. When they try to sell the property, they can actually satisfy their claim. Yeah,
right. That's when they'll get the money. So maybe you could tell us about a recent client experience you had, without sharing any, confidential information, the problems they were facing, how you got involved and how you were able to help fix things or make the situation much better.
Okay. The recent one actually is a client come to see me after a revenue officer actually contacted them.
Oh,
Because when you have actually a bigger liability, usually they assign it to a special agent to IRS. They are actually more knowledgeable, have more training, and they have more power, of course, so they can actually issue federal tax lien, and it can issue levy and everything.
Okay.
So the client actually came see me after a revenue officer left a message on his phone. So he reached out to me and, we filed a power of attorney. And I am actually working with the revenue officer. Before doing that, actually, the client actually had almost $300,000 liability. We actually managed some planning, actually, that I mentioned. And hopefully in a week or so, we are going to have an installment agreement because he was not qualified for any other program than the installment agreement. Usually, first thing first, everybody actually wants to settle with the IRS. They call it, the settlement, the offering compromise. I always actually check the client's finances to see if they qualify for offering compromise because, of course, it's the best program.
Yeah.
But I think less than 10% actually qualify for offering compromise. Other than that, usually it's going to be an installment agreement, some kind of penalty abatement, removing some penalties, or in the cases that they can't afford to pay anything, we are actually putting them on the hardship program. So there are different programs, and they are actually really good for the people who have the liability. What I mean is there is always hope. There's always a program that can help them kind of resolve or reduce the liability.
Yeah. There's no debtor's prison anymore.
No.
So that's a good thing.
No.
Okay, let's switch gears, Maryam. I'm curious, is there something that outside of your business, outside of your practice, that you are especially passionate about, something personally?
I actually like to read about different subjects.
Okay.
I like to hang out with my, not family, but my friends actually are my family right now. When you move from another country to another country, your friend actually replace your family, kind of replacing, but they are kind of your family.
Right.
One thing that I am adding to my kind of interest is actually traveling. I really didn't have a chance to travel much, so I'm actually adding that to my list of things I would like to do.
Yeah. Do you have a bucket list place that you want to go to? What's your ultimate destination?
I'm starting with Europe, so we'll see.
Okay. All right. Go big or go home. I like it. That's good. Okay, so let's switch back to your business. So what do you feel like is probably the biggest opportunity you see for your business, for your work that you do?
I think so long that we are going to have tax in this country and, of course, everywhere, there is always opportunity for my business. There is always a problem and that needs to be solved. But I don't call it actually opportunity. I think it's a dream. I would like to, hopefully in maybe a few years, have a low-income tax resolution clinic.
Okay.
So it's not really an opportunity, it's a dream. And I would like to have that set up, hopefully, because I do offer, pro bono, and I really help. I try to help, I started at a tax, human rights attorney. So it's still with me. I don't think actually I can, I be actually even lose that part of me. So I would like actually to have that so I can actually help more people. Right now, I'm not reaching everyone, but hopefully after a while I can. So that's kind of a dream. I don't know if it's opportunity or not. And maybe actually I would like to do some kind of maybe teaching.
Okay.
Educating, especially people that comes from other countries about the tax system and the younger generation, because, a lot of people who come to see me, if they knew better, they wouldn't be in that problem at all.
Yeah, right.
Maybe actually I lose my client, but I prefer that.
Yes, right. That's prevention in advance. I like that. And the helping people maybe in not the greatest circumstances, it sounds like that's part of your DNA, part of who you are. So it would be impossible to take that out of you. That's great. So on the flip side of that, Maryam, I'm wondering, is there anything you see as your biggest obstacle or challenge in your business that you are hoping to overcome or that you're struggling with?
I cannot say I'm struggling with, but I am a I'm a tax attorney. I really do not like the marketing part of it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you want to focus on what you do.
Yes, I think I'm doing great, but I'm not doing a lot of marketing. To be honest with you, maybe that's the only issue that I have in my law firm. But it seems working because clients reach me. I have enough clients. Maybe, I don't need to be worried about marketing. But at the same time, it's a business. That's the only issue that I have. And maybe after a while, I can actually delegate that to someone else because I don't enjoy marketing part of it. I'm doing that, but I don't enjoy it.
Yeah, you want to try to get to a point where you can outsource it to somebody competent, and then you can focus on what you do really well. Okay. So if people wanted to learn more about you or contact you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
As I mentioned, I have a very simple website. They can go actually to mytaxreliefattorney.com. That's the URL for the business. And of course, there is a phone number. I am actually in LinkedIn, not active in Facebook, but I have a Facebook account. So they can reach out to me. But the best way actually is going to my website and of course, call me.
Awesome. Maryam, thanks. I want to congratulate you. You did a great job. And I want to thank you for being here, taking the time to be with me today. It's been a real pleasure to interview you and get your unique perspective on things, given where you come from and your outlook on life. And I want to thank everybody for listening, tuning in, and watching the Confident Retirement Podcast brought to you by LPF Advisors, where we are hoping to raise the confidence of everyday people on a financial level to new levels, one show at a time. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, watching, and listening. We will see you next time. Be well. Maryam, thank you.
My pleasure.
You've been listening to the Confident Retirement Podcast with Chris and Mark from LPF Advisors. For more information on them and retiring confidently, please visit lpfadvisors.com. If your ears are pleased and your mind is now at ease, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.